The screen of my husband's old phone illuminates my face in the darkness of our bedroom closet. 3 years after his death, and here I am, clutching his iPhone like it holds the answers to questions I never thought to ask. I'm Elizabeth, Liz to those who know me well, and what I'm about to discover will shatter everything I thought I knew about my family. Found something interesting? Nathan's voice cuts through the silence, making me jump. My eldest son leans against the doorframe, his silhouette blocking the hallway light. There's something in his tone that sends a chill down my spine. Just going through some old things. I slip the phone into my pocket, but Nathan's eyes follow the movement, thinking about donating them. He steps into the closet, too close for comfort. After 3 years seems sudden. Nothing sudden about grief, Nathan. I move past him, forcing casualness into my steps. Sometimes it takes years to let go. Or to start digging. His words follow me down the hallway. In the kitchen, I pour myself a glass of wine with trembling hands. The texts I found moments ago swim through my mind. Conversations between James, my late husband, and Mark Reynolds, his supposed best friend. Numbers, accounts, threats. My phone buzzes. Lucas, my younger son. Mom, you okay? Nathan just called me, said you were acting weird. I stare at the message. Of course Nathan would call Lucas. He always does when he's worried I might discover something. I type back. All good. Having dinner with Sarah tomorrow. Love you. Sarah, my sister-in-law, needs to see these messages. As a lawyer, she'll understand their implications better than I can. But there's something else gnawing at me. Nathan's name appeared in those texts too many times to be coincidental. The doorbell rings, startling me from my thoughts. Through the peephole, I see Emily, Nathan's fiancée, standing on my porch with that perfect smile of hers. Elizabeth! She hugs me as I open the door, her designer perfume overwhelming. I was just passing by and thought I'd check on you. Nathan mentioned you seemed upset earlier. I force a smile. That's sweet of you both, but I'm fine. Just sorting through some memories. Of course. Her eyes dart past me into the house. Mind if I use your bathroom? These pregnancy hormones, you know. I gesture toward the hallway, watching as she disappears inside. My future daughter-in-law, carrying my first grandchild, and yet something about her presence here feels calculated. When she emerges, her smile seems different. Thanks. Oh, and Nathan asked me to grab that old phone of James's if you still had it. He mentioned wanting to check for some old family photos. My hand instinctively touches my pocket. I haven't come across it yet. Still lots of boxes to go through. No worries, she chirps, but her eyes narrow slightly. I'm sure it'll turn up. After she leaves, I pull out James's phone again. The last message from Mark catches my eye. N knows everything. We need to move faster. Your wife can't find out about the transfers. My fingers hover over Sarah's number. Tomorrow suddenly feels too far away. But as I reach for my keys, another text from Nathan appears. Mom, Emily said you seemed tired. Get some rest. We can talk about Dad's things tomorrow. I set the phone down, my mind racing. They're watching me, trying to control what I discover and when. But they don't know what I've already found, or what I'm capable of doing with that information. 3 years of grieving my husband, and now I'm about to uncover just how many lies died with him, and how many are still living in my own home. Sarah's law office feels too sterile for the conversation we're about to have. I slide James's phone across her desk, my finger hovering over the messages that have haunted me since yesterday. Before you read these, I say, I need to know if attorney-client privilege applies to sisters-in-law. Sarah's eyes narrow as she picks up the phone. It does when I'm officially retained. She pulls out a notepad, writes 1 on it, and slides it to me with a pen. Sign here. I do, and watch her face as she scrolls through the messages. Her professional mask slips for just a moment, showing something between shock and anger. Nathan's involved in this? She asks, though it's not really a question. That's what I need to find out. I lean forward. Emily showed up at my house last night asking for that phone, said Nathan wanted it for family photos. Sarah's laugh is sharp. Family photos. Right. She sets the phone down carefully. These messages suggest James and Mark were moving substantial amounts of money. The timestamps. She pauses, checking dates. These continued right up until James's accident. The word accident hangs between us. I've never questioned it before, but now. My phone buzzes. Nathan. Mom, we need to talk. Coming over for dinner tonight. Important business opportunity to discuss. He's coming over tonight, I tell Sarah. Wants to discuss business. Don't let him know what you've found. Sarah starts writing rapidly. We need to track these transfers before... The office door opens. Mark Reynolds stands there, his usual confident smile faltering when he sees me. Sarah, I had a quick question about... He trails off, his eyes fixed on James's phone on the desk. Mark. I stand slowly. What a coincidence. Elizabeth. He recovers quickly. Too quickly. How are you holding up? Nathan mentioned you've been going through James's things. Of course Nathan mentioned it. Did he tell you what I found? Mark's smile doesn't waver, but his hand tightens on the doorknob. I should come back later, Sarah. Elizabeth, always good to see you. After he leaves, Sarah's typing furiously on her computer. He'll warn Nathan. Good. I gather my things. Let him. I want to see what story they come up with. That evening, I'm chopping vegetables when Nathan arrives. He brings wine, expensive wine, and Emily trails behind him, already playing with her engagement ring like she always does when she's nervous. Mom, Nathan starts, pouring 3 glasses. We need to talk about Dad's estate. What about it? I keep chopping, not looking up. I've been thinking about his legacy, about building something that would make him proud. Nathan's voice has that smooth quality it gets when he's pitching something. I've found investors willing to back a new venture, but we need initial capital. How much? I ask, finally looking at him. Just what's in the trust, temporarily. He smiles, James's smile, but somehow wrong. It's a sure thing, Mom. Emily's father's firm is backing it. Emily nods enthusiastically. Daddy says it's the opportunity of a lifetime. I set down the knife. Like the opportunity Mark Reynolds discussed with Dad? The silence is absolute. Nathan's smile freezes, then transforms into something harder. You've been talking to Mark? No. I reach for my phone, pull up the messages. But Dad was. Right until the day he died. Emily stands abruptly. I should give you two some privacy. Stay. Nathan's voice is sharp. Mom's obviously confused about some old business dealings. The only thing I'm confused about, I say, is whether you started helping them steal from us before or after your father died. Nathan's glass hits the counter hard enough to crack. You have no idea what you're talking about. Dad's business was complicated. Was the accident complicated too? The words escape before I can stop them. Nathan's face goes white, then red. How dare you? I loved Dad. Everything I'm doing for this family. Nathan, Emily tugs at his arm, maybe we should go. He shakes her off. No, Mom needs to understand. Dad's way of doing things, your way of doing things, it's not enough. The world doesn't work like that anymore. I look at my son, really look at him, and for the first time, I see a stranger. Get out of my house. Mom, get out. Both of you. After they leave, I text Sarah. It's worse than we thought. Nathan knows everything. Her response comes quickly. Don't confront him again. I'm pulling the trust records tomorrow. And Elizabeth, be careful. Mark's been asking questions about James's accident report. Lucas's studio apartment smells of turpentine and coffee when I arrive with Sarah's files. He takes one look at my face and clears his easel from the kitchen table. You found something bad, he says, not a question. I spread out the bank statements Sarah uncovered. Your brother and Mark Reynolds have been systematically draining Dad's estate for months, even before. My hands shake as I point to a series of transfers. The last one was made an hour before the accident. Lucas studies the papers, his artist's hands tracing the numbers. Nathan always said Dad promised to fund his business ventures. These aren't business ventures. I pull out another document. Sarah traced the money. It's being funneled through shell companies, then disappearing into offshore accounts. Mom, Lucas's voice is gentle. What aren't you telling me? Before I can answer, my phone buzzes. A text from an unknown number. Meet me at James's grave. Noon. Come alone. Mark. Lucas reads it over my shoulder. You can't go. I have to. I gather the papers. Mark knows something about the accident. I saw his face when I mentioned it to Nathan. Then I'm coming with you. No. I touch his cheek, remembering when he was small enough to carry. I need you to do something else. Go to Emily's father's office. Find out what you can about their investment firm. Emily's father? Lucas frowns. What does he have to do with this? Nathan said he's backing the venture, but according to Sarah's research, his firm declared bankruptcy 3 months ago. The cemetery is empty when I arrive, except for Mark standing at James's grave. He looks older than I remember, haunted. Elizabeth. He doesn't turn around. I was hoping you wouldn't dig this deep. Tell me about the accident. It wasn't supposed to happen that way. His voice cracks. James found out what we were doing. He was going to expose everything. My world tilts. What are you saying? Nathan came to me first, 6 months before, had this brilliant investment scheme, needed startup capital. Mark laughs bitterly. I saw an opportunity, used him to access James's accounts, but James figured it out. And you killed him. No, Mark turns, face ashen. God, no. We just needed him to back off. Nathan said he'd talk to him, make him understand. The brake lines, that wasn't part of the plan. The ground seems to sway beneath my feet. Nathan tampered with the brakes? He said it would just scare James, force him to listen. But the road that night? Mark stops, looking past me. Elizabeth, behind you. I turn to see Nathan standing there, Emily beside him. His face is a mask I don't recognize. I wondered how long it would take you to crack, Mark. Nathan's voice is ice. Mum, you shouldn't believe everything you hear. Mark's been unstable since Dad died. Guilt does funny things to people. Nathan, Emily tugs his sleeve. We should go. No. He shakes her off. Mum needs to understand. Everything I did, everything Dad died trying to stop, it was all for us. The family legacy he was too scared to build. You killed him. The words taste like ash. Your own father. I tried to reason with him. Nathan's composure cracks. He wouldn't listen, just like you won't listen. The money's gone, Mom. All of it. And if you don't help me fix this, Emily's father will destroy what's left of our family's reputation. My father? Emily steps back. Nathan, what are you talking about? The bankruptcy was a front, he snarls. Your father's been laundering money through my companies. If I don't deliver, he'll expose everything. I watch my son unravel, this stranger wearing Nathan's face. Behind him, Emily backs away, horror dawning in her eyes. Mark stands frozen at James's grave. My phone buzzes. A text from Lucas. Mom, get out of there. Emily's father isn't bankrupt. He's FBI. They've been investigating Nathan and Mark for months. I look up to see Nathan reading the same message over Emily's shoulder. Our eyes meet, and in that moment, I see the little boy who once needed me to check under his bed for monsters. But now I know where the real monsters are. Nathan, I say softly, what have you done? The FBI office is sterile and cold, much like the truth I'm about to share. Agent Sanders, Emily's father, sits across from me, his expression unreadable as Sarah arranges documents on the table between us. Mrs. Turner, he says, we need to discuss your options. Options. Such a clean word for such a messy situation. You mean whether I'll testify against my own son? Nathan's involvement goes deeper than you know. He slides a folder across the table. These transactions suggest James's death wasn't the impulsive act Mark described. My hands won't stop shaking as I open the folder. Insurance policies, offshore accounts, a second will I've never seen before. He planned it, I whisper, months in advance. Mom. Lucas's voice from the doorway makes me turn. He looks exhausted, paint still under his fingernails from his latest piece. Emily's here. She enters like a ghost, her engagement ring conspicuously absent. Elizabeth, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. Not at first. When did you figure it out? The question comes out sharper than I intend. 3 months ago. She won't meet my eyes. Nathan started talking about James's accident differently, like it was necessary, when I told Dad, "You were already working with the FBI." The pieces click into place. That's why you pushed for the pregnancy announcement. We needed Nathan to accelerate his plans. Agent Sanders's voice is professional, detached. The pregnancy gave him a reason to push for access to the remaining trust funds. My laugh sounds hollow even to me. And I thought he was just being an eager father. Sarah touches my arm. Elizabeth, you need to decide. Nathan's meeting with Mark tonight. The FBI can move in, but your testimony would destroy him. I finish for her. But he destroyed himself the moment he decided to kill his father. My phone buzzes. Nathan. Mom, I can explain everything. Meet me at the house. Just you. Please. I show the message to Agent Sanders. He nods to someone outside the room and suddenly there's activity everywhere. Agents donning vests, checking weapons. Mrs. Turner, Agent Sanders says, we can handle this without you. You don't have to. Yes, I do. I stand, feeling older than my years. He's still my son. The drive home feels eternal. FBI vehicles shadow me discreetly, but I've never felt more alone. Lucas wanted to come, but this is between Nathan and me. It always has been, really. This dance of expectations and disappointments. The house is dark when I arrive, except for the kitchen light. Through the window, I see Nathan sitting at the counter, head in his hands. For a moment, he looks 16 again, worried about college applications and basketball tryouts. Then he looks up and the illusion shatters. You're wearing a wire. It's not a question. Yes. He nods slowly. Did you ever wonder why Dad never let me into the business? Why he always kept me at arm's length? He was protecting you. He was controlling me. Nathan's fist hits the counter. Everything I did was wrong, too aggressive, too risky. But look what his caution got him, a middling company and a legacy of mediocrity. It got him killed, the words hang between us, by his own son. I gave him a chance to understand. Nathan's voice turns pleading. Mum, everything I did was to make us stronger, to build something worthy of the Turner name. And Emily? Was she part of the plan? Something flickers in his eyes. Where is she? With her father, at the FBI office. The change is instant. Nathan's face hardens and I see James's killer emerge. You're working with them. No, Nathan, I'm your mother. I'm trying to save what's left of you. Save me. He laughs, and it's a terrible sound. Mom, there's nothing left to save, but I can still save you. From what's coming next. His hand moves toward his jacket, and suddenly I understand. This isn't about explanation or redemption. It's about silencing the last witness who could destroy everything he's built. Nathan, I say softly, backing toward the door. What would your father think? Let's ask him. He pulls out the gun. After all, you'll be seeing him soon. The gallery walls are stark white, making Lucas's paintings burn with even more intensity. I watch him adjust the lighting on his centerpiece. A fractured family portrait where every face is turned away except one. My face staring out from the canvas with eyes that know too much. The opening's tomorrow, Lucas says, not turning around. Nathan will come. The FBI will be here too. I step closer to the painting. Hidden in plain sight, just like the truth was all these years. Mom! Lucas finally faces me. You don't have to be here. Sarah can handle... I need to see his face. My voice sounds strange even to me. When everything falls apart, I need to watch it happen. My phone buzzes. Mark, Nathan knows about tomorrow. He's not planning to surrender quietly. Before I can respond, Emily appears at the gallery entrance, her face pale. Elizabeth, we have a problem. Nathan's been to see my father. What did he offer? Everything. She moves closer, lowering her voice. Names, dates, accounts, everything about Mark's operation, in exchange for immunity. The betrayal shouldn't surprise me anymore, but it still cuts deep. And your father? Refused. But Nathan... She glances at the painting. He laughed. Said if he's going down, he's taking everyone with him, including Lucas. My blood runs cold. What does Lucas have to do with this? The gallery. Emily's hands twist together. Nathan's been laundering money through art sales. He's been using Lucas's name, his reputation, for months. Lucas drops his tools with a clatter. That's why those collectors were so eager to pre-purchase everything. They weren't real buyers. No. Emily looks away. They were Nathan's partners. Tomorrow night, when the sales go through, Lucas would be implicated in everything. The pieces click into place with horrible clarity. Nathan's using his own brother as a fall guy. My phone buzzes again. Sarah. Police found Mark. He's dead. Apparent suicide, but nothing about this family is what it appears to be anymore. Cancel the opening, I tell Lucas. We'll find another way to... No. Lucas's voice is firm. This ends tomorrow. All of it. He turns to the painting, and I see James in his stance, in his determination. The same determination that got his father killed. Lucas, please. My voice breaks. I can't lose both my sons. You already lost one. He touches the canvas, tracing the turned-away faces. The brother I knew died the day he decided to kill Dad. What's left is just... shadow. Emily's phone chimes. Her face goes ashen as she reads. Nathan's just posted online. He's exposed everything, the money laundering, Mark's death, all of it. But he's twisted it, made it look like Lucas was the mastermind, using his art to hide the operation. The evidence... I start, but she cuts me off. Doesn't matter, the story's out there now. By tomorrow night, everyone will believe Lucas is guilty. I look at my younger son, still standing before his work. The gallery lights cast his shadow long and dark against the white walls, like a prophecy of what's to come. Then we change the ending, I say, an idea forming. Nathan wants to destroy his brother's reputation. Let's give him exactly what he expects. Mom? Lucas turns, wary. The opening continues as planned, but instead of your usual pieces, I gesture to the family portrait, we tell the real story, every painting, every piece, the truth about Nathan, about James, about all of it. He'll try to stop us, Emily warns. I'm counting on it. I pull out my phone, texting Agent Sanders. Nathan wants an audience for his revenge. Tomorrow night, he'll have one. Lucas studies me for a long moment. This could destroy everything. The gallery, my career. Your father died protecting this family's secrets. I touch his cheek. Maybe it's time we stopped protecting them, too. As I leave the gallery, I pass the family portrait one last time. In the harsh lighting, the turned-away faces seem to mock me, while my painted eyes stare back with a challenge I finally understand. Tomorrow we all face forward. Tomorrow we all see the truth, even if it kills us. The gallery buzzes with voices and champagne glasses, a perfect facade of normalcy. I watch from near Lucas's centerpiece as Sarah positions the FBI agents among the crowd. Agent Sanders stands by the entrance, Emily at his side, both pretending to admire a particularly haunting piece. Nathan as a child, his face half in shadow. He's here, Lucas murmurs, appearing at my elbow. Nathan moves through the crowd like smoke, greeting people with that perfect smile of his. The smile that convinced everyone, including me, for so long. He pauses at each painting, his expression growing darker as he realizes what Lucas has done. Turned every canvas into a piece of evidence, every brush stroke an accusation. Quite a show, Nathan says, reaching us. Though I expected more subtlety from you, little brother. Like the subtlety of framing me for money laundering. Lucas doesn't back down. Speaking of money, Nathan's eyes find mine. The transfers are already processing. By midnight, the gallery's accounts will be empty. Every sale, every commission, gone, along with proof of where it all really went. My hand tightens on my glass. It's over, Nathan. The FBI are too late. He smiles, genuine this time. Did you really think I'd come here without insurance? Check your phone, Mom. The text message makes my blood freeze. Video footage of James the night he died, arguing with Nathan in his office. The timestamp matches the accident perfectly. I've set it to release to every major news outlet at midnight, Nathan continues. Dad's last moments, proof that Lucas knew everything about the money laundering, the grieving artist corrupted by greed, they'll love it. That video's edited, I say, but my voice shakes. Prove it. Nathan sips his champagne. Oh, wait, you can't, because the original footage died with Mark. Funny how evidence has a way of disappearing. Lucas steps forward, but I grab his arm. Across the room, I see Agent Sanders moving closer, Emily's face tight with tension. You'd destroy your own brother? I ask. Everything he's worked for? Like Dad tried to destroy me. Nathan's mask slips, showing something raw beneath. He chose Lucas over me every time, the good son, the artist, while I had to fight for every scrap of approval. So you killed him. I freed us. Nathan's voice drops lower. From his control, his disappointment. I could have freed you too, Mom, if you'd just trusted me. Trust you. The laugh tears from my throat. You murdered your father, set up your brother. How many more people have to suffer for your freedom? Just one more. He sets down his glass. At midnight, when those transfers complete, Lucas's career ends. The scandal will destroy him. Unless what? Unless you confess. Nathan's eyes gleam. To everything. The money laundering, Mark's death, all of it. A mother's desperate attempt to protect her favourite son, using the other as a scapegoat. The press will eat it up. The gallery seems to spin around me. You want me to confess to your crimes? I want you to choose finally between your sons. He checks his watch. You have 10 minutes before the video releases. 10 minutes to save Lucas's future. I look at Lucas, seeing James in his eyes, in his strength. Then at Nathan, my firstborn, now a stranger wearing my son's face. Mom, don't, Lucas whispers. But I'm already stepping forward, reaching for Nathan's phone. He lets me take it, that triumphant smile growing. Agent Sanders, I call out, my voice carrying across the gallery. I believe this is what you've been waiting for. Nathan's smile freezes as FBI agents converge. The phone's locked. You can't. James taught me something you never learned, I say, watching his face. Always have a backup plan. I press my thumb to the phone's scanner. It unlocks instantly. Dad gave me access to everything after he discovered what you were planning, I tell him, including this phone. The real video is here, showing exactly what happened that night. Nathan lunges for the phone, but it's too late. On every screen in the gallery, the truth begins to play, and I watch my son's perfect world crumble, knowing that in saving one son, I've lost the other forever. The holding cell's fluorescent lights make Nathan look older, harder. I sit across from him while Sarah stands by the door, her legal pad untouched. The DA's offering a deal, I say, sliding the papers across the metal table. In exchange for information about Mark's death. Nathan's laugh is hollow. Still trying to save me, Mom? After everything? I'm trying to understand. My hands rest flat on the table, steady now. Mark's confession was found in his car. He claimed he manipulated you, used your ambition. Used me? Nathan leans forward, chains rattling. I used him. Just like I used Emily, used Lucas's gallery. Dad taught me well. Everything's a tool if you know how to grip it. Your father never... My father was weak. His fist hits the table. He had everything, connections, power, respect, and he wasted it on morality. On Lucas's art. On your perfect little family. Sarah steps forward. Nathan, think carefully about what you say next. Why? His eyes lock onto mine. Because it might hurt Mom's feelings? Because it might ruin what's left of our family name? He laughs again. Tell me, Mom, how does it feel knowing you raised a murderer? The question hits like a physical blow, but I keep my voice steady. I raised 2 sons. One of them killed his father. The other one helped catch him. Lucas, Nathan spits the name. The golden child. Did he tell you he knew? About the money laundering? About Emily working with the FBI? He knew for months. Watched me dig my own grave. He tried to warn you. He tried to control me. Just like Dad did. Nathan's mask cracks completely. Do you know what Dad said that night? That I was a disappointment, that everything I touched turned toxic. So I showed him just how toxic I could be. My hand moves to my throat, where James's wedding ring hangs on a chain. You tampered with his brakes. I gave him a choice. Nathan's voice drops to a whisper. Back off, or take the consequences. He chose wrong. And Mark? Outlived his usefulness. Started having regrets, talking about confessions. A cold smile. Amazing how guilty people get when they realize they're working with a murderer. Sarah's pen scratches across her pad. Nathan notices his smile widening. Writing this all down, Aunt Sarah? Good. Make sure you include how Mum's perfect parenting created this monster. How Dad's constant disappointment shaped me. How Lucas's talent poisoned everything. No. I stand slowly. You don't get to blame us for your choices. Choices? He laughs. Like the choice you made at the gallery, sacrificing one son to save the other. I chose justice. You chose Lucas. Like always. His chains rattle as he stands. But here's what you don't know, Mom. That video you found, the one that exposed everything, I wanted you to find it. My breath catches. What? Dad's phone, the texts, Emily's involvement, all of it was bait. I needed you to play your part, to be so focused on saving Lucas that you wouldn't see the bigger picture. Sarah steps forward. Nathan, stop talking. But he continues, eyes fever bright. While you were all focused on the gallery, on the money laundering, my real operation was moving offshore. Everything Dad built, everything he protected, it's gone. And the best part? It's all legal. Because you, Mom, signed it all away 3 months ago. The memory hits me. Papers Nathan had me sign during Lucas's first gallery showing, when I was distracted with pride and champagne. Power of attorney, he says softly. You gave me everything, and now I own what's left of Dad's legacy, what's left of his precious reputation. Sarah's already on her phone, but I can see in her face it's too late. I look at my son, this stranger wearing Nathan's face, and finally understand. This wasn't about money or power or even revenge. It was about destroying everything James loved, piece by piece, starting with me. The prison visiting room smells of industrial cleaner and stale coffee. Nathan sits across from me, orange jumpsuit stark against his pale skin. This isn't a scheduled visit. He requested it, his first contact since the sentencing 6 weeks ago. You look tired, he says. Selling a company takes work. I keep my voice neutral. Even one that's been gutted. Is that why you're here? To tell me how you salvaged Dad's legacy? I'm here because you asked. I study his face, searching for my son beneath the stranger's mask. Though I don't know why. Nathan's fingers drum the table, a nervous habit from childhood. Emily's pregnant, for real this time. The news hits like a physical blow. How far along? 4 months. She didn't know during everything. He won't meet my eyes. She's moving away, doesn't want the baby growing up with my name. I think of James, of all the grandchildren he'll never meet. What do you want from me, Nathan? The truth. His voice cracks slightly. Did Dad ever say he was proud of me? Even once? He was proud of who you could have been. The words taste bitter. But you chose to become someone else. Someone stronger. Someone alone. Silence stretches between us. Through the window, I watch Lucas in the parking lot, waiting by the car. He's sold every painting from that gallery showing except one, the family portrait with the turned-away faces. Lucas's new gallery opens next week, I say, in Dad's old office building. Nathan's laugh is hollow. Fitting. The prodigal son inherits everything. He inherited nothing. I sold everything you left us, donated it all. Now he looks at me. Your father's legacy isn't buildings or bank accounts. It's the choice between right and wrong. The choice you failed to make. And you? His eyes narrow. Did you make the right choice, turning in your own son? I chose justice, like your father would have. Justice? Nathan leans back. Tell me, Mom, was it justice when you signed those papers without reading them? When you let your pride in Lucas blind you to what I was doing? When you... Stop! I stand, my chair scraping loud against the floor. You don't get to rewrite this story. Your father is dead because of your choices. Mark is dead because of your choices. That's your legacy, Nathan. Not Dad's company, not Lucas's success. Just choices and consequences. He's silent for a long moment. The baby's a boy. The words hang between us like smoke. I reach into my bag, pull out an envelope. What's this? Letters. From your father to you. He wrote them every birthday, never sent them. I place them on the table. I found them in his study last week. Nathan's hand shakes as he touches the envelope. Why show me these now? Because you need to understand what you destroyed. I move toward the door. And because that baby deserves to know there was good in his family, once. Mom, his voice stops me. Will you tell Lucas about the baby? Yes. Will you tell him about these letters? I look back at my son, seeing for the first time a glimmer of uncertainty in his eyes. No. Some secrets should stay buried with their consequences. Outside, Lucas helps me into the car. You okay? I touch James's ring around my neck. Drive to the gallery. I want to see that painting again. At the gallery, I stand before the family portrait. But now, in the harsh light of truth, I see what I missed before. The turned-away faces aren't hiding. They're looking towards something in the distance, something beyond the frame. While my painted eyes stare straight ahead, seeing everything, bearing witness. Just like James would have wanted. Lucas touches my shoulder. Ready to go home? Yes, I say, turning away from the past and its shadows. I'm ready. Behind us, the painting watches with knowing eyes, holding its secrets close, just as our family always has. Just as we always will.
I, a 26-year-old woman, have always had a strained relationship with my parents, primarily due to my younger sister Ava, who is now 19. Despite my efforts to unveil her manipulative nature over the years, my parents never saw it, until a recent incident. Ava was born a few years after my mother suffered a heartbreaking miscarriage. Considered a miracle child, Ava brought immense joy and healing to our family. Consequently, my parents doted on her excessively, often making her the focal point of our family. As children, I genuinely cared for Ava, but as we grew, I began to notice her manipulative tendencies. She was adept at twisting narratives to her advantage and excelled at portraying herself as the victim. This talent of hers left me and the rest of our family often blindsided by her actions. On one of my birthdays, our grandparents gifted me an antique pocket watch, a cherished family heirloom. Ava, envious, wanted to share it, but I refused since it was my special gift. Unable to persuade our parents as it was a grandparent's gift, she resorted to placing a spider in my pillowcase, knowing my fear of spiders. That night, I awoke to a spider crawling on me and screamed in terror. While our parents rushed to my aid, Ava feigned shock and concern, only to later confess her actions to me with a disturbing smile. Another painful memory involves inviting a classmate, Paul, over to watch a movie. Excited and dressed to impress, my anticipation turned to humiliation when Ava deliberately spilled juice on my dress and mocked me in front of Paul. She spent the evening sharing embarrassing stories from my childhood, ensuring Paul and I had no privacy. When he left, Ava smugly remarked that he could do much better than me. Despite repeatedly sharing these experiences with my parents, they dismissed them as youthful naivety, always viewing Ava as the innocent one. This pattern caused me to retreat and stop voicing my concerns, feeling increasingly like an outsider within my own family. I focused on my studies and eventually moved out for college, which provided a much-needed break from the tense home environment. However, Ava's disdain was palpable during my visits home. She would ignore me at family meals, interrupt conversations with our parents, and often tamper with my belongings under the guise of borrowing them. Recently, my parents took Ava on a vacation, excluding me, which seemed like just another instance of favoritism. However, during this trip, Ava's actions escalated to the point where she got arrested. finally exposing her true character to our parents. This incident has been a turning point, as my parents are now beginning to see the Ava I've known all along. This shift in their perception is bittersweet, as it comes after years of feeling overlooked and misunderstood in my own family. During my college years, I preferred spending breaks with the families of my college friends rather than going home. My parents understood and saw this as a sign of my independence and desire for some space. When my sister Ava finished high school, her grades weren't strong enough for university, so she opted for community college and stayed at our parents' home. Now I work for a business analyst in San Francisco, and I love my job. My contact with my parents is sporadic, and I rarely visit them. I've completely lost touch with Ava. Recently, my father suffered a serious heart attack but miraculously survived. After being rushed to the hospital and receiving treatment, he was advised to exercise regularly. Following his recovery, he expressed a desire to spend more time with the family. My job allows me to work remotely, so I stayed a few extra days at home. However, Ava seemed upset by my presence, so I kept my distance to avoid conflict. One morning, my father proposed a family vacation, something we hadn't done in years. Although I had reservations, I agreed for my father's sake. Ava, unenthusiastic, reluctantly accepted. My father handled all the travel bookings. I planned my leave from work and asked my colleagues not to contact me during the vacation, as I wanted to focus on family time. Upon arriving at the airport, I discovered my flight ticket had been canceled. My father was confused, insisting he had booked and paid for it. Upon investigating, we found that only my ticket had been canceled. Ava, smirking at me, seemed pleased. Recognizing her familiar manipulative expression, I confronted her, but my parents dismissed my accusations, attributing it to an airline error or a simple mistake. Frustrated by their inability to see through Ava's actions, I felt sidelined. With no available flights that day and the prospect of traveling alone the next day unappealing, I was stuck. Despite the chance to fly out later, the idea of sharing a room with Ava, who clearly hadn't changed, was daunting. This family trip was turning out to be more stressful than anticipated, making me question whether it was worth pursuing at all. Wondering what other tricks my sister Ava might pull to ruin my trip, I felt disheartened. My father, initially reluctant, suggested perhaps returning home to plan a different vacation. However, he soon reflected on how long it had been since he'd taken a break, and my mother chimed in, remarking on my frequent work-related travels and implying that missing one trip wouldn't be a big deal for me. Their words stung. It seemed they were subtly encouraging me to let them go without me. Reluctantly, I told them to proceed with their vacation if they wished, and they quickly accepted. Though I was saddened that they seemed indifferent to whether I joined or not, I didn't want their investment in the trip to go to waste. I watched as they excitedly headed off, leaving me alone at the airport. I decided to return to my place in San Francisco, preferring the solitude of my own space over the empty feeling of our family home. Back home, I tried to move past the airport debacle. I reconnected with old friends and lost myself in books, making the most of my time off. During the vacation, my parents occasionally video called me, seemingly unaffected by my absence, which highlighted the existing favoritism in our family. I hoped they would one day see Ava's true colors. This hope seemed to materialize sooner than expected when, a few days into their trip, I received multiple missed calls from my mother. Alarmed, I thought something had happened to my father's health. When I called back, my mother, clearly distressed, revealed a shocking discovery. My father's crucial heart medications had been vanishing daily. They feared they wouldn't find the same medications abroad. In a desperate search, my mother found the missing pills hidden in Ava's room while borrowing sunscreen. This chilling discovery confirmed Ava's alarming actions. My father, upon seeing his medications in Ava's possession, realized the grave risk posed by our sister. My mother, shaken, asked if they should confront Ava immediately. I advised them to wait until they returned home to address it calmly and with evidence, knowing Ava's ability to manipulate situations. However, things escalated quickly. That evening, my father called to inform me Ava was in jail following a volatile confrontation. She'd become enraged when questioned about the medications, lashing out violently and accusing our father of favoring me by including me in their plans. Her outburst escalated until the hotel staff had to call the police. When they arrived, Ava's defiance only worsened, leading to her arrest. She would be released soon, but the incident had irreversibly changed my family's dynamics. My parents were now painfully aware of Ava's manipulative and harmful behavior. As difficult as the situation was, it seemed necessary for confronting the long-ignored issues within our family. In a turn of events that felt more like a thriller than real life, my parents found themselves stranded abroad following Ava's release from jail. To their dismay, they discovered their passports and wallets were missing, presumably hidden or discarded by Ava. This crisis marked the first time my parents truly saw Ava's destructive behavior for what it was. My mother, who had always shielded Ava, was now in a state of shock. Her illusions shattered. She called me, distraught, pleading for help as they were stuck without money or identification. I reassured them, promising to send money via Western Union, but stressed the urgency of locating their passports to facilitate their return home. I was confident Ava hadn't thrown them away. For the first time, my parents acknowledged that I had been right about Ava all along. They expressed their gratitude for my willingness to help despite their earlier decision to exclude me from the vacation. They apologized for their previous behavior and for not recognizing the favoritism that had hurt me over the years. While part of me yearned to forgive them, the deep-seated feelings of neglect were hard to overcome, increasing my anxiety for their situation. After Ava was released, they had no choice but to confront her for the passports. Threatened with the possibility of another police call, Ava finally disclosed the hiding place of their passports. Upon their return home, my parents had a definitive confrontation with Ava. It was clear they had reached their limit. They demanded she pack her belongings and leave, unable to tolerate her manipulative and harmful actions any longer, especially after the risk she posed to my father's health by hiding his medication. During the heated argument, Ava lashed out with bitter accusations. She expressed her resentment towards sharing her parents' affection and insisted they should disown me, claiming she should be their sole focus. Her words revealed the depth of her possessiveness and desperation, but this time my parents saw through her manipulation. This confrontation marked a significant turning point as they finally recognized the need to address the toxicity that had long affected our family dynamic. At that moment, it became painfully clear to my parents just how deep Ava's jealousy ran and the extent of her resentment towards my role in our family. In her frustration, Ava erupted in a torrent of accusations, threatening to tarnish their reputation. She claimed she would tell everyone that our parents, who are respected export manager, had neglected her during her childhood. Further, she threatened to falsely accuse them of parental negligence to the police if they insisted on her moving out. The possibility of these baseless claims jeopardized their standing in the community, leaving them trapped and anxious. In the days that followed, Ava's behavior grew increasingly erratic and destructive. When she learned that our parents were in regular contact with me, her fury intensified. She started breaking dishes in anger and even took to hiding their car keys, making it difficult for them to get to work. Just recently, my mother tearfully recounted another distressing episode. During dinner, when she was too exhausted to cook, Ava threw a massive tantrum. She smashed furniture around the house and then retreated to her room, blaring music so loud that our parents couldn't sleep. This escalating pattern of behavior deeply worried me. While I'd always hoped my parents would see Ava's true nature, I now feared she posed a real danger to their safety. I felt powerless to return home, as my presence might provoke her further, potentially leading to more volatile confrontations. Amidst this turmoil, Ava was arrested following an especially severe incident where she threatened our parents with a knife during an argument. This was the breaking point that compelled them to finally act. The police responded promptly, and Ava was taken into custody, charged with assault. With Ava in custody, my parents decided it was crucial to find a lasting resolution. They consulted a lawyer who advised them on the legal steps necessary to remove Ava from their home. They proceeded with filing a formal eviction notice, making it clear she could no longer stay with them. This legal action was a difficult but necessary step to protect themselves and restore some semblance of peace to our family life. It was a difficult decision, but for the sake of safety, it was essential. While our parents didn't wish to press further charges against Ava, they needed her to leave the family home. After bailing her out of jail, they served her with a formal eviction notice, meticulously prepared to ensure there were no legal loopholes Ava could exploit. This notice detailed the reasons for her eviction and specified the timeline for her departure. With legal representation, they initiated the eviction process in court. The thought of taking legal action against their own daughter was heartbreaking for them. They wrestled with feelings of guilt and sadness, but understood there was no other viable option. After a difficult period, the court issued an order mandating Ava's eviction. If she didn't comply voluntarily, they were legally empowered to remove her from the property. By next week, Ava would be required to leave, allowing our parents to finally look forward to reclaiming their peace and home. This ordeal has been incredibly challenging, but they remain hopeful for a quieter, more stable future post-eviction. Throughout this process, I've stayed in constant contact with them, offering support. To help them unwind from the stress, I've invited them to spend a few weeks with me in San Francisco. This visit would not only provide a much-needed change of scenery, but also allow us some quality time together, a chance to strengthen our bonds and support each other. In response to many comments on my previous posts, I appreciate the suggestions about considering a mental health evaluation for Ava. However, since she is an adult, it's complex. She must consent to any evaluation, and we don't want to escalate the situation by forcing the issue. Recently, my parents arrived in San Francisco, and we've had some heartfelt discussions. Sitting around the dinner table in my cozy apartment, they opened up about their mistakes. They expressed deep regret for not recognizing Ava's troubling behavior sooner. My father was particularly remorseful, acknowledging that he should have listened to my concerns earlier. Both of my parents were pained by the realization of how their favoritism towards Ava had hurt me over the years. They sincerely asked for my forgiveness. I let them know that while it was not easy to revisit those painful memories, I appreciated their acknowledgement and willingness to make amends. This openness is the first step towards healing our family wounds and moving forward together. Listening to my experiences, my parents were deeply shocked and saddened by the extent of the emotional distress I had endured alone. They openly acknowledged the pain I felt from feeling isolated within my own family. This conversation revealed how their favoritism towards Ava, whom they had never expected and always viewed as a miracle, had skewed their judgment. With genuine remorse, they asked for my forgiveness for the years of oversight. It was a bittersweet moment for me, having longed for their recognition, even if it hadn't come about in the way I had hoped. Nevertheless, this marked a turning point that introduced a new level of honesty and clarity to our family dynamics. For the first time in many years, we were truly confronting the issues that had plagued our family. I shared with them that rebuilding trust would take time, but we committed to working through these issues together. For the remaining days of their visit, I planned to cherish the time with my family, enjoying the vibrant streets of San Francisco, sharing meals, and simply enjoying each other's company. This time together was about more than just fun. It was a crucial period for mending the bonds that years of favoritism and denial had frayed. As we reconnected, it became clear that their decision to stay with me was about more than escaping the immediate stress caused by Ava. It was about a genuine desire to repair and renew the family dynamic that they feared was nearly lost. We needed this fresh start just as much as they did. During their visit, we discussed how to handle the situation with Ava, who was currently staying with a friend. Despite the chaos she had caused, as parents, they felt a profound responsibility towards her. We recognized that her troubling behavior might stem from deeper issues and considered the possibility of a mental health evaluation to better understand her condition. However, since Ava is an adult, we couldn't force this assessment and would look for ways to encourage her to seek help voluntarily. My parents planned to reach out to Ava once they returned home to gauge her openness to discussion. I chose to remain distant as she still harbored strong resentment towards me, and I didn't want to exacerbate the situation, especially considering her past aggressive behavior. I advised my parents to meet her in a public place to help ensure a controlled environment, where she would be more likely to manage her emotions. Our primary goal was for Ava to understand our perspective and to recognize the deep love and concern we still held for her. This wasn't about assigning blame, but about coming together as a family to address and heal from the issues that had strained our relationships. This approach was about fostering understanding and support, paving the way for a healthier family dynamic in the future.
I was abandoned by my parents on my 16th birthday, just months before starting college. They made it clear they wanted me out so they could pursue their own ambitions without the burden of supporting me. Fast forward a decade, I'm now 26 and a father celebrating my son's 3rd birthday. The guest list was a mix of my son's friends from daycare, their parents, and some of my co-workers. Unexpectedly, my estranged parents, who had cut all ties with me, reached out wanting to reconcile. I warily invited them to the party. Our relationship had always been strained. I felt neglected throughout my childhood. Their focus was never on nurturing me, but rather on their personal goals. After they threw me out, I was forced to fend for myself, juggling jobs to afford living expenses, and eventually giving up my dream of a car to manage more immediate needs. During the birthday party, my parents showed a sudden interest in making amends. However, their true intentions surfaced quickly. They asked me for money. I was taken aback, but refused their request. In retaliation, they absurdly accused me of stealing $100,000 from them and attempted to sue me, a claim that had no basis in reality. This legal threat came after years of no support or contact, making their actions feel even more manipulative and unjust. It was a painful reminder of why I had distanced myself from them in the first place. Despite this, I've worked hard to build a stable and loving home for my son, far removed from the instability of my own upbringing. Growing up, my friends were great, but they had their own lives to lead, and naturally, they didn't have space for me to move in with them. Luckily, a distant relative, Uncle William, who was actually my mother's cousin, came to my rescue. He replied to my desperate email with an invitation to stay with him in Utah, on the condition that I help around the house and potentially work at his diner. Eager for a fresh start, I packed my bags without informing my parents or even bidding them farewell, as they seemed indifferent to my departure. Uncle William was a unique character, a bit eccentric but kind-hearted, and he had inherited a decent sum of money from his grandparents, allowing him to live comfortably without a direct family of his own. He ran a popular local diner and offered me a job there as a KFC cashier. In exchange for my hard work and commitment, he generously agreed to cover my college tuition. Working diligently at the diner, I proved my seriousness and gratitude. After graduating and moving on from Uncle William's home, I tried to repay him, but he insisted that he would call in the debt when I became a bigger success. Sadly, he passed away from a stroke a few years later, before he could see the full extent of his investment in me. I am forever grateful for his support, especially since he stepped in as a father figure at my wedding, a moment neither of my parents shared with me. As a child and even as an adult, Uncle William had a strained relationship with his own family, including my mother. Thus, my parents remained unaware of where I had been and who had financed my education. It wasn't until recently that they reached out through social media, having been informed by a cousin who traced me after hearing about my marriage and child. They expressed a desire to reconcile and meet my family, claiming regret over past actions. Their approach seemed lukewarm, and I hesitated to respond. However, they quickly followed up, emphasizing their genuine intention to reconnect. Reflecting on everything, this unexpected outreach from my parents left me contemplating the ties of family and the paths we choose, or those chosen for us, shaping our lives in unforeseen ways. My grandparents were still around, eager to meet their great-grandson, yet it was clear they were playing on my emotions to make it happen. Despite this, I agreed to their visit, timing it with my son's birthday. I had no particular plans, but after discussing it with my wife, who's been with me through thick and thin for over 5 years, she was supportive as long as I felt comfortable. She understood my troubled past with my parents, who had ejected me from their life a decade ago. My wife had lost her parents early and was raised by her grandparents, who had both passed away recently. I sensed she yearned for some family connection at our son's party, though she never pressed it on me. Considering this, I decided to invite my parents for her sake. On the day, my parents arrived an hour before the other guests, giving us some private time. The encounter was strained, filled with awkward attempts at small talk. After introducing them to my wife and son, they remained polite and courteous initially. But the atmosphere shifted when my wife stepped into the kitchen to prepare tea for my dad. That's when my mother seized the moment to reveal their true intent. They weren't just here to reconcile, but were in dire need of financial help. They confessed to squandering much of their savings on travels, and now found themselves struggling to manage their bills. They knew my wife and I were in stable financial positions, she as a mortgage broker and I in branch manager. The sincerity of their earlier apologies faded, making it clear their visit was primarily a maneuver to solicit financial help. This revelation soured the mood, reducing their heartfelt apologies to mere strategic moves to secure financial aid. They had even leveraged their visit and the pretext of seeing their grandson to coax me into a softer stance. While their tactics were largely ineffective on me, they certainly left a bitter taste, overshadowing what could have been a genuine attempt at mending our fractured relationship. My wife, unfamiliar with the depth of my parents' past misdeeds, had initially been swept up by their show of remorse. Her own longing for familial connections made her particularly receptive to reconciling. Unfortunately, my reluctance to host them only grew as the visit unfolded, culminating in regret. I held back my true feelings initially, especially when she entered, smiling with refreshments, radiating happiness that I didn't want to dampen. As my parents subtly prodded me for a financial bailout under the guise of familial bonding, I deflected their inquiries, especially as party guests began arriving. My wife continued engaging with them, finding common ground easily, which contrasted sharply with my growing desire for their swift departure. The party's atmosphere lightened with the arrival of more guests, allowing me to immerse myself in hosting duties and the joyous task of celebrating my son's birthday. The cake cutting was a hit, and for a moment the tension ebbed. However, as the party wound down, my parents cornered me again for an answer about the money. Overwhelmed, I blurted out a sharp response and redirected them to mingle in the living room. Feeling cornered and needing to clear the air, I decided to address the elephant in the room. I gathered everyone and began what I intended as a candid speech about my turbulent past with my parents. While aiming to keep the tone light, I recounted how they had once expelled me from their lives, leading to a decade of silence, only broken recently by their desire to connect with their grandson, a gesture I suspected was motivated by their current financial woes. My narrative, sprinkled with humour, seemed to amuse the guests, though it visibly embarrassed my parents. My wife maintained a neutral expression throughout. I wrapped up the speech, half joking about my gratitude that their reunion attempt wasn't driven by financial greed, an attempt to lighten the mood that didn't entirely land as intended. As the evening concluded and guests departed, my parents left hurriedly, casting stern glances my way, though thankfully they spared me any confrontation. The real challenge came afterward, when it was just my wife and me. Before I could explain the full context of my parents' visit, she criticised the speech for overshadowing our son's birthday and unnecessarily shaming my parents publicly. She felt an apology was due, not just to my parents, but to our guests for the discomfort caused. Her reaction stung, as it seemed my attempt to inject some honesty into the evening was now being viewed as a selfish spectacle. It was a tough pill to swallow, realising that what I felt was a necessary airing of long-held grievances was perceived as an inappropriate outburst that might have marred an otherwise joyful celebration. This misunderstanding underscored the complexities of handling personal and familial conflicts amid social gatherings, leaving me to reflect on the balance between personal catharsis and public decorum. Reflecting on the contentious birthday party, I find myself torn between justified anger and familial expectations. It's clear to me that my son, being so young, wouldn't retain memories of the event, and most guests seemed amused by the humorous spin I gave my rather heavy story. My intent was to expose my parents' true characters, especially given their recent disappointing actions and previous estrangement. However, the fallout was immediate and intense. My wife, who initially encouraged the idea of inviting my parents hoping for reconciliation, was deeply upset by how I chose to handle the situation. She insisted I apologise to everyone for what she deemed inappropriate behaviour on a day that should have celebrated our son. I felt my stress peak, compounded by her reaction, which seemed disproportionate given that no guests expressed discomfort. Her response felt like a dismissal of my feelings, especially after she learned why my parents had really come. To ask for money, not merely to reconnect. In the heat of the moment, I argued that she was the one who had wanted them there, hoping she'd share some of the emotional burden. Unfortunately, my frustration only upset her more, leading her to tears. I tried to comfort her, but she accused me of being self-involved and hypocritical, a blow that led her to isolate herself in the guest bedroom since. Since that night, our home has been silent, with her unwilling to speak to me unless I apologised to our guests. But inside, I don't believe I was out of line. No guests have commented negatively on the incident, and I haven't heard from my parents either. It feels like my wife might be amplifying the situation in her mind, fearing judgment that isn't there. I'm stuck between wanting to maintain peace and feeling the need to stand my ground. I did invite my parents primarily for her, managing to keep my cool, initially despite their pressure. But when pushed too far, I responded the only way that felt right at the moment, revealing their true intentions publicly. This situation reveals deeper issues. My long-standing resentment towards my parents for abandoning me, and the fresh wounds from their latest betrayal. My wife's reaction, while meant to preserve decorum, overlooks the complexity of my feelings and our shared past experiences with my parents. I'm left pondering how to bridge this gap with my wife. I believe understanding and compassion should go both ways. I wish she could see that my outburst wasn't just about the party or our guests, but a culmination of years of suppressed hurt and disappointment. Reconciliation within our family, both immediate and extended, requires a deeper empathy for these entangled emotions, and I hope we can find a way to discuss this openly, beyond the surface tensions. I realised I could apologise to my wife for calling her self-involved. That wasn't fair or right, and I regret that. Beyond that, though, I genuinely felt there wasn't much more for which I needed to apologise. I could perhaps extend an apology to our guests if necessary, but I stood firm on not owing one to my parents, especially not after their attempt to use my son's birthday as a leverage for financial support following a decade of estrangement. After seeing mixed opinions on my initial story, I decided it was crucial to clear the air directly with my wife, since that's the foundation of a healthy marriage. It had been 3 tense days of silence and sleeping separately since the party, an arrangement that hardly went unnoticed, even if our young son might not fully grasp the situation. This morning, before heading to work, I approached her. Thankfully, she was willing to engage. Our son was busy with his breakfast, giving us a moment of privacy. I apologized for my harsh words during our last argument, but expressed that I didn't believe the party was ruined by my speech, as nobody had even mentioned it afterward. Not the guests, not even my parents. I explained as gently as I could that I felt she might have overreacted. To my relief, she agreed. She admitted that once her initial anger had subsided, she recognized that she had been selfish and not fully considerate of my feelings. She acknowledged that she had influenced the decision to invite my parents more than she had admitted, aiming for a picture-perfect family scenario she deeply desired but hadn't explicitly voiced. She confessed that her reaction was tied to her own deep-seated needs. Having been raised by her grandparents after her parents' early deaths, she yearned for our son to enjoy a close-knit family experience. She wanted him to have the grandparental love and attention she cherished in her childhood, a vision disrupted by the reality of our strained familial relationships. She apologized for letting these personal hopes cloud her judgment of the situation, recognizing the pressure it put on me. I, in turn, apologized for not being more open about my feelings from the start, acknowledging that better communication could have prevented the escalation. We agreed that therapy might be the best next step to navigate these complex emotional landscapes and ensure that our responses to each other and to family situations were healthy and constructive. This conversation was a breakthrough, a chance to understand each other's perspectives and emotions more deeply, paving the way for healing and stronger unity in our marriage. My wife and I have been attending individual therapy for a while, but given recent events and some other unrelated challenges, we've decided to start couples counselling as well. Thanks to everyone who commented with advice and support. But life threw another curveball my way courtesy of my parents. Out of the blue, they've slapped me with a lawsuit alleging that I stole $100,000 from them before I left home a decade ago. They claim to have finally tracked me down to get their money back. Needless to say, the accusations are baseless, and I pity the lawyer who's taken up their cause, must be desperate for the work. I'm not going to waste time on what I see as a ridiculous claim. I've already got my lawyer handling it. Following this development, my wife has retracted her earlier insistence that I apologise to my parents. She now sees more clearly the type of people they truly are. Previously, I might have handled their visit with more kindness, especially since it coincided with our son's birthday. Now, however, I see no need to hold back. I've decided to lay it all out online, detailing not just this ludicrous lawsuit, but also the past mistreatment I endured at their hands. I've gone ahead and shared every detail on my Facebook page. It's been about 29 minutes, and while I haven't received any direct responses yet, I'm bracing for the fallout. I mentioned how, despite family turning their backs on me in the past, they've recently been keen to rekindle ties now that I'm in a stable position, likely because it benefits them. My job in branch manager, potential connections, it all adds up to opportunistic motives for their newfound friendliness. After 5 days, the reaction has been intense. My parents freaked out over my posts, bombarding me with calls trying to get me to delete them. I held firm until they texted, promising to drop their lawsuit. I made sure to get that in writing. Post that, they blocked me. But the real drama came from other relatives I had named, who spewed vitriol under my post, targeting not just me, but also my wife and son. Ironically, it was their children who reached out to apologise for their parents' harsh words, showing more decency and maturity. I've since taken down the post, but it was up long enough to make its mark. Those who turned their backs on me have faced the music and, in a strange twist of fate, seen the consequences of their actions.
I had been planning a memorable 45th birthday celebration for my husband, JPVV, a milestone he was particularly eager to reach since his own father had sadly passed away at 37. The party was meant to be a joyful gathering of his nearest and dearest. In my efforts to make it special, I took great care in organizing every detail, from inviting his beloved mother, Sophia, who lived out of town, to ensuring that the decorations were just right. I even managed to keep it all a secret, telling JPVV that I would be spending the evening at my parents' house to lower his expectations and enhance the surprise. The night of the party, as JPVV's car pulled up, my excitement was palpable. Our friends and family hid in the dark, waiting to erupt into a cheerful surprise. Happy birthday as soon as he walked in. However, the joyous occasion I had envisioned crumbled in an instant. As the lights came on and we all shouted our surprise, JPVV entered, not alone, but in an intimate embrace with his coworker, Ellie, kissing her as if they were the only 3 people in the world. The room plunged into stunned silence, the air thick with shock and disbelief. Ellie was younger than us both and worked under JPVV. Though I had noticed her somewhat flirtatious nature at company events, where she jokingly referred to herself as his work wife, I had never taken it seriously. I assumed it was just her way of interacting playfully with her colleagues. But that night, as they stood there, oblivious to the hurt they were causing, JPVV went a step further, calling our marriage a mistake in front of everyone. It was a moment of profound betrayal, transforming a night that was supposed to celebrate life and love into a painful turning point in our lives. I had always trusted my husband completely, never considering the possibility that another woman could threaten our marriage. However, that belief shattered the moment I saw him kissing Ellie. It happened during his surprise birthday party, and the sight was more humiliating than I could have ever imagined. As the guests and I watched, stunned, my husband, seemingly intoxicated, broke the kiss and clumsily laughed it off, saying, "Oops," as if it were a minor slip-up. Ellie stood next to him, awkwardly adjusting her clothes, her lipstick nearly gone from their kiss. The silence in the room was palpable, every eye fixed on me, waiting for my reaction. Breaking the tension was my mother-in-law, Sophia, who stood up and shouted at John, demanding an explanation. My husband looked genuinely surprised to see her there and struggled to find his words, muttering something about not expecting everyone to be there. My heart pounded as I confronted him, demanding to know why he would do this, especially during a party that I had organized to celebrate him. He hesitated, then admitted that he and Ellie had been seeing each other for months and were falling in love. The room spun as he confessed, his words slicing through the festive atmosphere and leaving a cold, harsh reality in their wake. He continued, justifying his actions by talking about his late father, who had passed away young without fulfilling his dreams. "I don't want to end up like him," he declared, determined to live life on his own terms. I stood there, devastated, tears welling up in my eyes, unable to reconcile this declaration with the man I thought I knew. In a moment of raw emotion, I grabbed the birthday cake I had carefully chosen for him and threw it at him in a burst of fury. The cake smeared across his clothes, and the room erupted into a mix of gasps and laughter. Amidst this, John furiously wiped his face, angrily lamenting the mess on his shirt, oblivious to the deeper pain he had caused. It was absurdly trivial compared to the emotional turmoil he had just unleashed. This episode not only revealed the truth about his infidelity, but also showcased his lack of awareness and sensitivity towards the damage he had done to our marriage. It was a moment of profound betrayal and heartbreak, yet it was also a turning point for me to confront the reality of our relationship and consider what my next step should be. John had just embarrassed me in front of everyone at our gathering, flaunting his disloyalty without a second thought for me. As he rushed upstairs, presumably to change, I remained in the room, my gaze sweeping over the crowd. Once he was out of view, I couldn't hold back my anger any longer. I walked directly to her, seized her hair, and pulled her outside amidst her loud protests and accusations of rough treatment. However, no one intervened. The guests simply watched. Outside, Sophia was already verbally attacking Ellie for her audacity to pursue John at our home, during our party, right in front of our friends. I confronted Ellie, my voice trembling with restrained rage. "How could you do this? You know what this night means to us, how long we've been together." My words were fueled by disbelief and pain. Ellie, however, was unfazed and even dismissive. She retorted with a smug smirk, claiming that John preferred her and that it was only a matter of time before he left me. She suggested arrogantly that the failure of our marriage was my fault, that I was the reason he sought comfort in her. Her cruel words cut deep. Her taunts about how John found solace in her understanding and her company pushed me to the brink. Blinded by anger, I slapped her. The shock of the slap silenced her momentarily, turning her tears into sobs and curses. At that moment, Sophia intervened with a stern warning for Ellie to leave, threatening another slap if she didn't. The guests, drawn outside by the commotion, watched silently, their presence a heavy reminder of the spectacle we had become. And just then, as if scripted, John reappeared, freshly dressed and disturbingly calm. He saw Ellie's reddened cheek and immediately sided with her, protectively draping an arm around her, as though she was the aggrieved party. His indifference to the turmoil he had caused was palpable, heightening the surreal nature of the evening. He raised his voice at me, filled with anger and disappointment, as if I had crossed some unfathomable line. To him, I was the culprit, the one who had committed an unforgivable act. At that moment, I was the villain for confronting the woman he had been involved with. His words then shattered me anew. I can't handle this anymore. I'm done, he declared loudly. I want you out of our house by the time I return from our trip. I hope I never have to see your face again. He was not only leaving me, but also planning a weekend getaway with her, severing our marriage. I stood there, frozen, overwhelmed by disbelief and pain, as I watched him escort Ellie to his car. They drove off without a second glance, leaving me to stare after the taillights fading into the distance, feeling an immense emptiness. It felt as if my heart had been violently torn from my chest. Sophia, witnessing my devastation, took charge of the situation. She gracefully asked everyone to leave, thanking them and apologizing for the upheaval. People approached me with awkward hugs and words of comfort before departing, leaving me numb, still in shock over the ordeal. Once the room had cleared, Sophia guided me to sit and handed me a glass of water. With the room now quiet, the emotions I had pent up began to surface, and I broke down into heavy, uncontrollable sobs. The shock, the humiliation, and disbelief poured out. My husband had obliterated our marriage during his own surprise birthday party, flaunting his affair in front of friends and family, then callously telling me to leave. Through my tears, I confided in Sophia, expressing how lost and directionless I felt. After years of dedication, caring for him during his illnesses, managing our home, and sacrificing my career to be the stay-at-home wife he desired, he had left me with nothing. Sophia listened intently, then reminded me of an important detail I had overlooked. The house we lived in, which seemed like ours, was actually owned by her late husband. It was a place teeming with cherished memories, which she had generously allowed us to inhabit to start our family and build our life. At the time, it had felt like a benevolent fresh start in a supportive environment, but now, it was clear that everything we had built was in ruins, tainted by betrayal and a profound breach of trust. Sophia expressed her disappointment, lamenting her role in raising a son capable of such deceit. She shared her anguish with me, her voice heavy with the kind of sorrow only a mother can experience when she realizes her child has transformed into someone unrecognizable. Pulling me into a comforting embrace that also felt like a vow, she then fixed her gaze upon me and firmly declared, "This is my house, and I decide who lives here, and I choose you." Her words were my anchor, granting me a semblance of control in a tumultuous situation. She continued, her tone resolute as she expressed her determination not to let John and Ellie undermine what we had. She wanted to make it clear to John that his actions would have serious, hurtful consequences. He needs to learn that he can't just break a marriage and walk away scot-free, she stated. Then, with a slight smile that brought a brief moment of levity to the chaos, she added, "There's no way I'm letting Ellie Scania move in here and disrupt our family home." Sophia's unexpected protectiveness was a surprise. I had assumed she would side with her son. Yet here she was, standing in my corner. John might have believed he could leave our marriage for another, but Sophia and I were set on showing him that life wouldn't be so simple. Sophia's support was a lifeline, lifting the heavy burden of uncertainty. That weekend, we formalized my stay through a rental agreement, providing tangible proof to safeguard my place in the home I cherished. With everything official, I took on the task of packing up John's belongings. It was strangely therapeutic to box up the remnants of our life together and stack them neatly on the porch for him to collect upon his return. A week later, I watched from the window as his car pulled into the driveway. By then, I had installed security cameras and changed the locks, a necessary precaution. When he tried his key and found himself locked out, his frustration was palpable. As he pounded on the door, his shouts echoing against the sturdy wood, I remained calm, watching through the camera. Instead of opening the door, I addressed him through the intercom, my tone nonchalant. "What are you doing here, John?" His reply came fast and furious, accusing me of overstaying my welcome. But I was unshaken, prepared to stand my ground and protect my space, no longer a passive figure in my own story. He stood there, insisting that I should have left already. His voice, dripping with disdain, bombarded me with complaints about how he was fed up with what he called my neediness and desperation. He expressed his frustration about our ended marriage, which he had publicly declared over, yet here I was, still in the house he wanted to leave behind. He vehemently stated that he wanted the divorce finalized and for me to vanish from his life. It was then that his gaze landed on the boxes outside. A quiet moment passed as he processed that they were his possessions, not mine. The sight of his packed belongings seemed to mute him momentarily before he scoffed, dismissing it all as some absurd prank. Yet he knew it was real. "You think you can just throw my stuff out? You think you can get away with this?" he yelled, approaching the door with a fierce determination, pounding on it as his anger resurfaced. "You have no right. I'll take this to court if I must," he roared, his voice shaking with rage. I watched silently, observing through the security camera as he paced the porch, his tirade almost comical in its futility. He still believed he controlled the situation. Calmly, I spoke through the intercom, explaining that the house was actually owned by his mother, not him. I had legally rented it from Sophia, making it my rightful residence. I informed him that he was actually trespassing and that if he wished to pursue legal action, he was welcome to try, though I doubted he'd have a strong case. I firmly requested that he remove his belongings and leave at once, or I would involve the police. Confusion swept over John's face as he struggled to grasp the reality unfolding before him. It was almost pitiful, the way he froze, processing the shift in power. But soon, fury took over and he whipped out his phone, likely calling his mother in a desperate attempt for support. However, I was confident Sophia would reinforce what I had just explained. This was no longer his home, and he needed to accept the consequences of his actions. As I watched him furiously pace, kicking and scattering the contents of the boxes in anger, it was clear his conversation with Sophia hadn't gone his way. His frustration peaked as he hurled insults through the door, labeling me a thief and vowing retribution. Yet, I chose not to engage with his provocations. There was no point. He was powerless to alter the situation. Despite his threats to drag this matter through the courts, both of us knew he had no substantial grounds. I had adhered strictly to the rules, and he could not justly claim any wrongdoing on my part, especially after he had so blatantly breached our marriage vows in the most hurtful ways. Eventually, the intensity of his outrage waned. Defeated and resigned, he began to load his possessions into his car. I observed as he packed the last of his belongings, his movements heavy with the weight of his new reality. As he closed the trunk, the fight had clearly left him, a stark acknowledgement that there was no victory to be had. The day the car door slammed shut and it drove off marked a significant shift in my life. Since then, I've been inundated with voicemails from both John and Ellie, each one filled with more resentment than the last. Ellie, in particular, took pleasure in denigrating me, calling me a witch for having John removed from our home. She lamented over their shattered dreams of building a life together in that house, accusing me of stealing that future from them. As it turns out, John has been staying in a motel because Ellie, who lives with 3 other roommates, cannot have him move in due to her landlord's strict rules. I find it ironic. If they were really committed, Ellie would break her lease and find a new place for them. But now, that's their concern, not mine. My focus has shifted to ensuring John faces the consequences of his actions. After what he did, I've filed for divorce and am ready to ensure he pays substantial alimony. He thought he could leave our marriage scot-free, but he is soon to learn that every action has repercussions, especially after betraying someone who is nothing but loyal. I sent an email to John's company detailing his affair with Ellie, describing the breach of both personal trust and workplace ethics. I included observations of Ellie flirting with senior men at company events, aiming to expose the affair not just as a personal betrayal, but as a professional misconduct. To my surprise, the company took my claims seriously and began an investigation, prompted by my email and corroborated by complaints from other employees about John's favoritism towards Ellie. Eventually, I was informed by colleagues, who have become friends, that John was terminated from his job due to the findings of the investigation. The satisfaction of knowing he was held accountable, at least in his professional life, was immense. As for Ellie, her future remains uncertain. For those concerned about my financial situation after my husband John's potential dismissal, I want to reassure you that I am in a strong position. Throughout our marriage, John earned a considerable amount of money, much of which he never spent on our family. We rarely went on vacations, seldom had date nights, and he hardly ever purchased gifts for me. Looking back, the warning signs were always apparent, but I chose to overlook them. Now, my primary focus is on finalizing the divorce and ensuring I receive what I am rightfully owed after enduring so much. I'm determined not to settle for less than what's fair, especially considering John's job loss and the unfolding events, which feel like a doorway to a new beginning for me. I have been officially divorced from my ex for a while now and have even begun dating again. During the divorce, John resented me, blaming me for his job loss, but there was little he could do. Multiple people witnessed him kissing another employee, Ellie, at his surprise party and overheard his admission of the affair. Although the divorce settlement wasn't enormous, it was sufficient to start rebuilding my life. One of the first things I did post-divorce was take a solo vacation to a beach where I relaxed and enjoyed cocktails all day. I'm currently working part-time at a friend's boutique and considering full-time employment opportunities in the future. My friend Sophia has been incredibly supportive through these challenging times, providing empathy and space that have been crucial for my healing. As for John and Ellie, they are still together. Although Ellie wasn't dismissed from the company, her reputation has suffered significantly. Many colleagues now avoid her, not wanting to be linked with the scandal that shook our company.
After enduring years of toxic behaviour from my stepmother, this situation escalated recently, prompting my wife and I to cut ties with her completely. My stepmother, who fancied herself as a party planner, has always taken charge of every family event since marrying my father. Despite her controlling nature, I tolerated her antics for my father's sake, as he believed it helped her feel included in our family. However, when it came to planning my upcoming wedding with my fiancée Ella, my stepmother's interference became unbearable. She constantly complained, meddled with our wedding planner, and even showed up unannounced at Ella's dress fittings. We had asked her multiple times to step back, but to no avail. My father, unfortunately, wanted us to appease her to keep the peace. Tensions reached a breaking point last Sunday. My father had agreed to babysit at our home while we were out. We returned to find a chaotic scene. Both children were crying, and my stepmother was in a full rage. She had exploded upon learning that William, Ella's 4-year-old half-brother whom we are raising, and our son would both be ring bearers at the wedding. She vehemently objected, claiming William wasn't real family, and even physically hurt him during her outburst. We were shocked and heartbroken. Immediately, we banned her from our home and the upcoming wedding. My father was upset and, influenced by my stepmother, even convinced some family members to side with her and boycott our wedding. Despite the pressure from some family members to reconcile, Ella and I stood firm in our decision, prioritizing the safety and well-being of our children. I've come to realize that protecting my family must come first, even if it means having a strained relationship with my father. We have since pressed charges against my stepmother after confirming William's injuries with a general paediatrician and reviewing nanny cam footage. While we have limited contact with my father and continue to navigate this challenging time, our focus remains steadfast on healing and moving forward with our lives. This experience has solidified our resolve to maintain boundaries and to not tolerate harmful behaviour, regardless of familial ties. Ella and I are committed to a peaceful and loving environment for our children, and we will not compromise on their safety and happiness. It's important to share that while my family deeply respects my dad, their feelings toward my stepmother are quite mixed. She had 2 failed marriages before she met my dad. Her earlier relationship ended dramatically when she left her boyfriend for my father, a boyfriend who was well liked by everyone in our family. This certainly didn't help stepmother's case, and her controlling and manipulative demeanour only worsened their perception of her. Stepmother attempted to assert herself in our family by overtaking every event planning role she could, thriving on the attention and praise that came with it. This caused many family gatherings, like Christmas and our birthdays, to feel overshadowed by her presence. The rest of the family remained largely indifferent, though they never really warmed up to her. However, her behaviour towards William, my nephew, was perhaps the most telling. Despite the family's instant affection for William, stepmother seemed resentful, likely feeling overshadowed due to her own strained acceptance within the family. When wedding plans were underway, stepmother's attempts to dominate were thwarted. She wanted to be overly involved, even suggesting she officiate, despite us already having someone else in mind. Her suggestions, including wanting my father to walk my bride down the aisle instead of her own brother, who we had chosen, were seen as attempts to insert herself where she was not wanted. The final straw was a concerning incident involving William, which led to a family fallout. My father and stepmother denied any wrongdoing, but the family knew the truth and sided with us, except for a few who chose to stay out of the conflict. This division has been painful, particularly as it has led to cutting ties with certain family members who refuse to see the situation clearly. Despite these challenges, our immediate family and Ella's relatives have been incredibly supportive, providing us with the emotional and logistical support we needed. It has been tough, and the journey of healing for William and coming to terms with our family dynamics continues. Through all of this, Ella and I have found strength in each other and in the love from those who truly support us. We're moving forward, cautious but hopeful, cherishing the peace we've managed to secure amidst the chaos. During this challenging period, I've been grappling with intense emotions, and the weight of them has left me struggling to find peace. Ella, my partner, has been recovering steadily and is encouraging me to start therapy. While I've had psychiatric help when I was younger, revisiting therapy now seems timely given everything we're facing. Despite some well-meaning advice from outsiders to reconcile, forgiving my father and especially wedding planning is something I can't see myself doing. My father's possibility of forgiveness remains uncertain, but forgiving stepmother is completely off the table. Even though our wedding planning continues amidst these personal upheavals, we're steadfast in keeping our original date. It suits our guests, and we've made our arrangements clear with our vendors to avoid any unwanted interference. Ella's family is more involved in our wedding due to their close-knit nature. My family, though less involved, still participates meaningfully. My sister will be a bridesmaid, 2 of my cousins are groomsmen, and my mother will join the wedding procession. Going through these motions with Ella has only deepened my appreciation for her. She's truly the partner I've always hoped for, and facing these adversities together has only solidified our bond. An unexpected situation arose when we had to attend a court hearing concerning wedding planning, his actions towards our child. It was the first time we'd seen wedding planning, and my father since the incident. Thankfully, the hearing was swift. The judge granted us a restraining order against wedding planning due to the overwhelming evidence we presented, including nanny cam footage and medical records. This decision has brought us a great sense of relief and security. Later, my father reached out. Despite the restraining order not extending to him, his conversation attempted to downplay wedding planning's actions and plead her case. However, I stood firm, recounting numerous instances where wedding planning had overstepped boundaries or behaved inappropriately, not just recently, but throughout our history with her. This conversation reaffirmed my decision to distance ourselves from her toxic influence. My sister has also decided to cease contact with our father, concluding that he is unlikely to change. This realization is painful but necessary as we prioritize the well-being and safety of our family. Now, with these matters momentarily settled, I find myself contemplating sharing more stories about our experiences with wedding planning, though this may take some time. As always, I extend my best wishes to everyone and appreciate the ongoing support. I might not update again until after the wedding unless something significant occurs. During this emotional and hectic time, the news of our expected baby didn't seem to stir much interest in wedding planning initially, especially compared to her enthusiasm for my stepbrother's engagement, who she hoped would provide her with a grandchild soon. Our own baby shower planning was already complex, as Ella and I were working up until the holidays, with our baby due in January 2023. We settled on an early January baby shower and decided it would be a cozy, co-ed event held indoors, considering the cold weather. We planned a laid-back pizza party theme since homemade pizza nights had become a cherished tradition in our home. The idea was to have fun without excessive spending, as we were saving for the baby and our upcoming wedding. The event venue we chose had a pizza oven, and our planners, my sister Ava and Ella's best friend Mia, came up with creative ideas to blend pizza-themed decorations with classic baby shower elements like customizable plain bodysuits for kids and pizza-shaped sweets. However, when my stepbrother's fiancée unexpectedly left him, wedding planning's focus shifted dramatically towards our baby shower. With her own grandparent dreams delayed, she suddenly transformed into an overzealous grandmother-to-be. She started posting excessively about it on social media, and even bought Nana shirts. Despite our insistence on no gender reveal and our decision to not learn the baby's sex until birth, wedding planning pressed us to find out and share the information as a Christmas gift. We stood firm on our privacy. She attempted to involve herself in the baby shower planning, suggesting to my father that she should help, which he relayed to Ava. Out of politeness and because Ava still lived with them at the time, she agreed to meet wedding planning for coffee. During this meeting, wedding planning presented a lavishly detailed plan from a binder she had prepared, which was more suited to an extravagant party than our casual gathering. Her vision included oversized teddy bears, giant alphabet blocks, and a strict pink and gold colour scheme that screamed excess rather than comfort. The proposed menu featured items Ella couldn't eat, like soft cheeses, and the setup included uncomfortable seating. Wedding planning insisted on an all-female, child-free party with upscale caterers and alcohol, excluding important family members from the guest list, and planning games that no one was interested in. Once Ava and Mia finally had a chance to present their simpler, pizza party-themed plan, they tried to compromise by incorporating some of wedding planning's ideas. But the core of the event remained unchanged. As the baby shower approached, we managed to integrate a bit of the decor wedding planning liked by balancing her preferred pink with some blue, and including one of the oversized teddy bears she favoured. By the week of the shower, everything was set, guests had confirmed, and we were ready for a joyful celebration focused on love and family, not extravagance. Wedding planning got involved on the day of the event, helping to set up early at the venue, a concession made to keep peace. In the end, the baby shower was a delightful blend of our laid-back style and a touch of the fanciful elements wedding planning liked, showing that, even in challenging family dynamics, compromises could be found. The important thing was that Ella and I were surrounded by loved ones as we celebrated the upcoming arrival of our baby, anchored in our values and preferences. 3 days before our baby shower, an unexpected twist emerged. The venue called Mia to report that wedding planning had dropped off several heavy boxes early, claiming they contained a little surprise for the event. She had informed the venue staff of her intention to arrive at 4 to 10 p.m. to start setting up. However, since the venue was booked only from 3:10 p.m. onwards, this plan was a concern, especially as wedding planning had nearly thrown a fit when informed that all official decor was still with Mia. Concerned about wedding planning's intentions, my sister Ava, who was quite adept at handling wedding planning's antics, visited the venue the next day to inspect the boxes. Unsurprisingly, they were filled with the overly pink frilly decorations wedding planning had initially proposed, balloons, placemats, and all sorts of pink paraphernalia that echoed the Barbie hell theme she seemed fond of. Realising wedding planning's plan to preemptively decorate the venue with her setup, Ava and Mia brainstormed how to handle the situation without causing a scene. Discarding wedding planning's decorations was an option, but Ava had a more tactful solution. She invited wedding planning to a salon, leveraging a fabricated story about having coupons, planning their outing right after wedding planning finished her setup. On the day of the shower, wedding planning arrived at the venue early as planned and quickly set up her pink wonderland by 6:10 p.m. Once she left for the salon with Ava, Ella, Mia and I headed to the venue. We had 5 hours to transform the space. We swiftly dismantled wedding planning's setup, replacing everything with our pizza party theme, laid back, fun, and devoid of overwhelming pink. We managed to redo the venue just in time for the shower, keeping the atmosphere light and enjoyable with pizza-making activities and casual decor. The guests began to arrive, and by the time wedding planning returned with Ava, the place was completely transformed. Wedding planning's reaction was one of shock and disbelief, barely able to comprehend the absence of her pink decorations. Ava, maintaining a cool demeanour, simply whispered, "Nice try," to wedding planning, leaving her to process the change. The baby shower turned out to be a wonderful evening filled with laughter, crafts, and plenty of pizza. Although wedding planning spent most of the event sulking in a corner, her efforts to sneak pink bows onto the cupcakes were quickly thwarted by Mia. The day was a success thanks to Ava and Mia's quick thinking, and our collective efforts to keep the party true to our vision. Post-shower wedding planning, as enthusiasm for her role as Nana waned significantly. She stopped wearing the Nana shirts, didn't visit us at the hospital, and generally withdrew from engaging with our new family dynamic. The event made it clear that our family celebrations would remain on our terms, reflecting our preferences and inclusive of those who genuinely support us. In the weeks following the baby shower, wedding planning's presence in our lives diminished significantly, and it was weeks before she discovered our baby was a boy during a brief and awkward visit. This encounter only underscored her superficial connection to her role as a grandmother, a role she never genuinely embraced or defined. The baby shower itself took place at 8:10 p.m, a timing dictated more by venue availability and the need for ample setup time than by preference. It turned out to be a gathering mostly of adults, as William was the youngest there, with other children being much older. Many parents opted to leave early, which kept the atmosphere relatively relaxed and adult-oriented. This wasn't exactly a child-free event, but it was tailored to accommodate the guests who could attend, acknowledging that not everyone on our guest list could make it. Fast forward to recent times, wedding planning has effectively exited our lives, which feels like a tremendous relief. Ella and I recently tied the knot, transitioning to calling each other husband and wife, a change we're both savouring. The wedding was a beautiful celebration, filled with joy, family reunions, and plenty of dancing, so much so that I was sore the next day. William, ever the responsible ring bearer, took great care in his duties, and despite a little overindulgence from my aunt, the day unfolded smoothly. It's been 4 months since we secured the restraining order against wedding planning, and peace has largely been restored, though not perfectly so. I didn't anticipate wedding planning would risk showing up at our wedding given the legal restrictions, and she didn't. We had prepared for all eventualities with adequate security measures, a decision I don't regret as it ensured our special day was undisturbed. Our only recent contact with my stepbrother was an exchange of birthday wishes and a text to Ella on her birthday, maintaining a cordial but distant relationship. My father, on the other hand, has stopped trying to reach out after multiple failed attempts and a significant fallout with my sister, who has chosen to limit contact after their last heated argument. This argument laid bare long-standing grievances, with my father unyieldingly defending wedding planning. Despite everything, there remains a complicated love for my father, a door not fully closed, but no longer open as it once was. He knows the steps necessary to mend our relationship, but until then, my sister and I continue to navigate our lives with the support of each other and our families, cherishing the tranquility that has followed our firm boundaries. I'm not entirely convinced he will change, but I'm holding on to a sliver of hope, perhaps due to my wife's influence. I'm naturally more skeptical, but maybe there's value in keeping that hope alive. Ella hasn't forgiven him or wedding planning, especially because of how protective she is over William. This whole ordeal has rattled her deeply, and there was a moment when I feared she might blame me. That fear was put to rest humorously when she called me a dumbass for even suggesting it. Therapy has been a surprising journey for me. It has opened my eyes to just how negatively wedding planning's behaviour impacted me growing up, more than I ever admitted to myself before. It's been incredibly freeing to express these long-buried feelings. Right now, life feels more fulfilling than I ever imagined. I've married an amazing woman and have the family I've always wanted. We're not without our flaws, but life has turned out to be wonderfully generous to me. I thought I would be less active on Reddit after settling down, but it turns out I've got a bit more to share, thanks to the unexpected support from the community here. Your advice and kindness over these past months have been invaluable. So, while I initially thought this update would be my last, there's a bit more to tell. Earlier today, my stepbrother reached out to me. After a heated argument with wedding planning, he wants to meet for coffee, just the two of us, to talk things over. We're scheduled to meet on Wednesday, and while I'm open to hearing him out, any apology will need to be backed by a real understanding of how he let us down. On a logistical note, Ella and I are off to our honeymoon this Friday, so I've decided to push back the meetup with my stepbrother. I want to enjoy our time away without the shadow of this meeting hanging over us. He was understanding, and we've agreed to talk after I return. Final update. It's been a while since I've been active here due to work commitments, but I know some of you are curious about how things have been with my stepbrother. We finally met for that coffee back in August. It turns out wedding planning had lied to him about several incidents involving William, painting a false picture that led to their argument. That confrontation with reality prompted my stepbrother to start questioning his relationship with wedding planning and everything he'd been led to believe about us. Over the last few months, we've been cautiously rebuilding our relationship, meeting regularly to discuss the past and heal. Ella joined these meetings in October, and our kids reconnected with him just 3 weeks ago. It was awkward at first, but we're finding our way back to a good place. He's also making amends with my sister, and they've been working through their shared history. As for our personal updates, William turned 5 in September, and our youngest will be 3 in January. Time really flies. We're spending the holidays with Ella's family in Brazil, which we're looking forward to. My stepbrother will be staying with his girlfriend, and things on that front are looking up. When I was 18, my life took a harsh turn. My parents and twin sister decided there wasn't enough room for me at home, effectively forcing me out. I spent the next several years grappling with instability, moving from makeshift living situations, including a tent, to getting by however I could. Despite these struggles, I managed to build a stable life and eventually bought my own house. Now, at 26, just as I've established myself, my family, led by my sister who's expecting her fourth child, suddenly reappeared. They arrived unannounced at my doorstep, looking to move in. This is the same sister who had once advocated for my ouster, claiming our home was too small for both of us. Growing up, I constantly felt sidelined in favour of my sister. Our parents made no secret of their preference for a daughter. They even admitted they would have chosen not to have me if my sister hadn't been conceived. Throughout our childhood, she was the centre of attention. Her needs always came first, from toys to clothes, while I received the bare minimum to keep up appearances. My sister has always exhibited narcissistic traits, likely a product of our parents' biased upbringing. She's been a continual source of distress for me, undermining me at every opportunity instead of providing the sibling support one might expect. This toxic family dynamic was somewhat mitigated by our grandfather, the only family member who saw through the unfair treatment. His passing when I was 15 removed the last bit of kindness I experienced at home. As teenagers, when my sister became pregnant, our parents married her off to her boyfriend and brought him into our already cramped home, leaving me without even a couch to sleep on. My father used the living room couch occasionally, so that wasn't an option either. With no alternatives and explicit instructions not to reach out to relatives, as that would expose our family's dysfunction, I was pushed out entirely. I ended up in a tent in our backyard, a solution that came about after the police mistakenly brought me back home following a brief stint of homelessness. This setup was a so-called reward for keeping quiet about my actual living conditions. Years of hardship and determination led me to a better place, both physically and emotionally. Now, as my family attempts to encroach on the life I've painstakingly built, I find myself at a crossroads, contemplating how to handle their unexpected and unwelcome return. They offered me a place to live in their backyard, on the condition that I clean it up first. I agreed, despite the area being in disarray, scattered with flour, sugar, and infested with rodents thriving on the mess. At one of the lowest points in my life, I saw this as an opportunity and quickly moved in, even though my sister seemed relieved to see me go, remarking on the lack of space for me at her place. No one cared to ask where I was heading. Cleaning and transforming the space into a livable area wasn't easy at first, especially dealing with the rodents that sought out the scattered food. However, I eventually settled in comfortably. My circumstances forced me to drop out of high school just a few months shy of my final exams. My friends advised me to stay in my parents' backyard and finish school, but I had already given up on that path. Instead, I focused on my job, relying solely on my earnings. Before long, I realized the need to enhance my skills for a better future. Growing up, my father was a service technician, and I often played with his tools instead of toys, helping him with various household repairs. This early experience came in handy when I decided to invest in further education and secured a job at a car manufacturing plant. I worked diligently, climbing the professional ladder until I became a design manager. Recently, an old friend in the midst of a divorce needed to sell his house quickly. Despite my initial reluctance, the substantial discount and flexible payment plan he offered were too good to pass up. I bought the 4-bedroom house and moved in 3 weeks ago. To my surprise, my estranged family showed up unannounced at my new home. Considering I had no contact with them for years and lived 17 miles away, their visit was unexpected. I suspect a neighbour, still connected on social media, might have informed them. Upon their forceful entry, my parents expressed pride in my accomplishments, but it was surreal for them to see me as a homeowner at 36 while they still rented. My sister and her husband wandered around as if they were assessing the place to move in. When confronted, they vaguely mentioned they were just checking on me. Ironically, they seemed interested in my life now when I needed them least. During their visit, my sister audaciously claimed a bedroom for herself, enthused by the private bathroom, as if it was settled that they would move in. My parents tried to reason with her to manage her children better amidst this chaos. I was flabbergasted and firmly refused any discussions about them moving in. The conversation escalated quickly, with them trying to impose a moral obligation on me to house my sister due to familial duty. In a heated moment, I stood my ground, emphasizing that my parents had the responsibility to provide for their children, not me. I demanded they leave my home, asserting my independence and refuting any guilt they attempted to place on me for their lack of planning and space. As they left, I realized the peace of living alone in my own space, free from the burden of uninvited and unwelcome expectations. Back then, my grandfather was fine with my cousin sleeping on the couch, but when I asked for a similar favor, he denied it and kicked me out. I vented about how I had struggled, living with rodents in my employer's garage, and then in a cramped apartment for 10 years, but my family never once checked on me. As I recounted my hardships, my mother began to cry and tried to hug me, but I stopped her and insisted they leave. John told me to toughen up, reminding me of his own hard times, suggesting I had plenty of space in my big house since I was single. I sharply told him to be quiet. My sister cursed at me for raising my voice at her husband, but I stood firm and told them to leave, or it would escalate. I ushered them out, refusing to let them argue back. My anger was palpable. They had always been toxic and self-centered, and now their greed was showing. I was no longer the compliant teenager they once manipulated. If they pushed further, I was ready to involve the police. To clarify, no, my sister never offered to pay rent. She and her husband have been sponging off my parents for over a decade, and now they seemed intent on leeching off me. Despite the strain it clearly put on my parents, they never took steps to push her out. Instead, they tried to unload her onto me. A week after our initial confrontation, my mother visited again. This time she was direct, arguing that my home had enough room to house my sister and her family. She repeated her reasoning about the crowded conditions at her place, but I remained resolute with my refusal. When subtle persuasion didn't work, she resorted to thinly veiled threats, suggesting that my large, often empty house was a security risk and that having family around would be safer and help with chores. I dismissed her fears and her manipulations, telling her firmly to leave and not return. Just days after our argument, a neighbor alerted me to suspicious activity around my house. He described seeing a pregnant woman, a man, and a young boy peering into windows and lingering in the backyard, likely trying to break in. Grateful for his vigilance, I gave him my contact information and asked him to keep me informed. My plans to install security cameras had been urgent, but not soon enough, as just 5 days later, the same neighbor called to tell me he thought someone had broken into my home. Rushing back, I discovered he was right. My sister and John had entered through a rear window. Confronted, my sister justified their break-in by claiming they had no other choice, accusing me of being unreasonable. As I processed her audacity, John smugly remarked on how easy it had been. I lost my temper and confronted him physically. My sister tried to intervene, and during the scuffle, their teenage son hit me with a bottle, causing my head to bleed. The situation escalated quickly into chaos, and my sister called our parents, painting a picture of me as the aggressor. When the police arrived, they began to clear up the mess while my sister and John frantically apologized, pleading not to have their son arrested. Despite their pleas, I was ready to pursue charges for everyone involved. My sister, however, denied the break-in and assault, claiming it was merely a family visit gone wrong, and that her son's actions were just a prank. As my parents arrived, they pressured me to drop the charges, uniting to defend my sister and label me as vindictive. Faced with their collective denial and manipulation, I was determined not to let them rewrite the narrative of what had occurred in my own home. Last week, my neighbor stepped forward to provide a crucial statement, which ultimately led to the arrest of those involved in my assault. They spent the night in jail because my parents couldn't afford bail. The following morning, they faced trial while I was at the hospital treating my injuries and ensuring there were no internal damages. I took a few days off to recover and press charges for assault, also seeking compensation for my legal fees, which the court granted. Despite my parents' efforts to persuade me to drop the charges, I stood firm, even threatening legal action against them for their involvement in orchestrating the attack. Given that their son is a minor, he was treated under juvenile law, resulting in a week's stay in a juvenile facility, with his parents liable for restitution, lost wages, and my medical expenses. My sister and her husband were fined heavily. In an attempt to lessen their financial burden, they requested to substitute part of their fine with community service. It's been quiet since the incident. I hope they've learned their lesson and will maintain their distance. However, my parents haven't let this go. Just yesterday, they showed up at my doorstep. After persistently waiting outside for an hour, I reluctantly let them in. They pleaded for my help, but when it became clear they were asking on behalf of my sister, I refused to be involved. They then revealed their real motive. They're aging, their home is deteriorating, and they wanted to move in with me, expecting me to take them in out of duty. I confronted them about their lack of responsibility as parents. They mentioned handing their house over to my sister, seeing it as another tactic to impose on me. They even suggested she could pay rent to stay in my house, which I could use towards my mortgage. I firmly declined, stating that my sister needs to manage her own financial challenges without my involvement. As they continued to plead, suggesting the house was too large for just one person, I made it clear that my future plans did not include remaining single or accommodating them out of obligation. Their attempts at emotional manipulation didn't sway me. I reminded them of their past actions and how they had once treated me, emphasizing that I would not be guilted into compliance. Their strategy to use familial ties to their advantage was clear, but I remained resolute in setting boundaries to protect my well-being and future. After my parents left my home, looking visibly upset, I closed the door behind them. Despite whatever names they might call me, I resolved not to yield to their demands or let them walk over me. Now, on to another challenging episode in my life. I'm dealing with a complex situation that's been a long time brewing, and now it's reaching a breaking point. I'm 36, married, and living in Ohio with my 5 kids. Originally from Houston, my childhood was shaken by my parents' divorce when I was 7, rooted in accusations of infidelity against my mum, which were never fully resolved. My father, suspecting my younger sister wasn't his, left the family but financially supported me, paying for my schooling but not for my sister's. This differential treatment caused a rift that has lasted decades. As years passed, my father and I reconnected and grew close, a bond that didn't sit well with my mum, especially after he named me the sole heir to his $710,000 trust money. Since his passing, my relationship with my mum and sister has been strained further by their financial expectations of me. Despite their limited incomes, my mum works as a shopping cart attendant and my sister in bakery sales. They've grown increasingly reliant on me. My financial assistance began with small sums and escalated as my own income grew, fueled by a sense of familial obligation. Recently, my mom reached out with a request to money a $910,000 renovation for our family home, citing severe disrepair. The call was unexpected and placed me in an awkward position, knowing she was eyeing my inheritance for this. I refused, leading to a heated conversation that left our relationship on thin ice. Adding to this, my sister was getting married, and my mum secretly used my money to money her lavish wedding. I discovered this misuse and froze the account, causing a big commotion. Now, I'm contemplating cutting financial ties, which is tough because it could push them into further hardship. It's a harsh step, but I'm exhausted from being taken advantage of. This dilemma weighs heavily on me as I try to balance my own family's needs with the guilt and responsibility I feel towards my mum and sister. I'm torn between my sense of duty and the need to protect my own financial stability. We were discussing the trust money, and I initially agreed to lend up to $90,000. In hindsight, it was a hasty decision to offer such a large amount without much thought. Despite my initial reluctance, once I made the commitment, I felt obligated to follow through. My husband suggested a prudent approach: lend the money in installments and assess the progress of the renovations at my mother's house before releasing further money. I informed my mum of our plan to distribute the $90,000 in portions. To facilitate this, I reactivated an old bank account in Houston, transferring the first installment of $90,000 into it and giving my mum access. My mum questioned why I hadn't transferred the money directly into her account. I came up with a weak excuse, although the strategy was my husband's idea. I was hopeful but not confident that she would repay the money. 3 months into the arrangement, I had transferred a total of $20,000. It was becoming clear that their kindness was driven by financial interest. I felt deeply misled by their deceit just to extract money from me. Adding to the confusion, I discovered through a friend, whose husband is a wedding planner, that my sister was planning a lavish wedding. It wasn't just any wedding, it was described as a grand affair expected to cost around $90,000. I was hurt, not only by being excluded from the guest list of 210 people, but also by learning about the wedding through an outsider. I checked the bank account where I had been sending money for what I thought was home renovation. It was empty. When I confronted my mum, she claimed that the renovation was still pending, despite having hired a company. Her lies were becoming too much to handle. After realizing the extent of the deceit, that the money S meant for medical and renovation needs were diverted to money my sister's extravagant wedding, I decided to stop all financial support. I ignored their calls and texts. Regardless of earning more or inheriting more from our father, I could no longer justify supporting their dishonesty. I resolved to protect myself from further manipulation and false pretenses. It was a painful decision, but necessary to preserve my well-being and financial integrity. During a recent conflict about trust money, my mum reached out to my husband after I stopped responding to her attempts to contact me. I had previously warned my husband not to engage with her or any family calls, but he ended up answering anyway. During their conversation, my mum tearfully complained that I had abandoned them mid-renovation, breaking my promise to help financially. My husband, in the heat of the moment, revealed that I was aware they had misused the monies for my sister's extravagant wedding instead of the house repairs, which was why I had stopped the financial support. This slip-up by my husband infuriated me because I had wanted them to feel the repercussions of their deceit on their own. He also accidentally told her about how we knew the money for her supposed knee surgery was redirected to home repairs. After this, my phone was flooded with my mum's apologies. She claimed there had been a misunderstanding, that she had taken a loan from someone else for the repairs and was using my money to pay it back. It was hard to believe anything she said at this point. Exasperated, I finally agreed to talk to her, but only if she was ready to be completely honest. She admitted over the phone that they had indeed planned to finance my sister's lavish wedding by deceitfully asking me for renovation money. They chose this strategy because they thought I wouldn't find out, given my absence from Houston and lack of local contacts. When I pressed her about not simply asking for wedding monies directly, she claimed my sister had been against the idea, not wanting to feel indebted to me. During our call, I confronted her about using the money from her knee surgery money to fix up the house. She confessed that the house needed urgent repairs before my sister's in-laws visited, and in a panic, she fabricated the story about needing a knee surgery. Although I tried to remain composed during the call, I was deeply hurt inside. It pained me to realize how my own family could manipulate me for financial gain, exploiting my emotions. After hearing the full extent of their deceit, I ended the call and cried for hours, reminiscent of the grief I felt during my father's passing. He had always seemed like the only person who truly cared for me. A few days later, my mum left a voicemail asking for the remaining money to continue with the wedding preparations, still showing no remorse. Her callousness pushed me to block both her and my sister's numbers. I warned my husband sternly not to engage with them any further, threatening him with consequences if he disobeyed. Meanwhile, my aunt, who lives near my mum, mentioned that the wedding plans were struggling without my financial support. I felt conflicted. On one hand, I was saddened by my role in potentially spoiling my sister's wedding, but on the other, I felt justified in protecting myself from further exploitation. On the wedding day, my mum's last message declared she was disowning me, a statement that left me devastated. Despite the accusations of being cruel and selfish, I knew I had to stand by my decision to cut them off financially. My friend, whose husband was involved in planning the wedding, informed me that the event might be cancelled due to unpaid bills. She inquired if I would help, but I decided against it, choosing instead to stand firm and not contribute further to a facade maintained by deceit. I found myself recalling the painful moment when I listened to my mother's last voicemail, announcing she had disowned me. I wondered why I had exerted so much effort for them when the end result was rejection. Perhaps my responses weren't always perfect, but they were provoked by their hurtful actions. To distract myself and the kids, I turned off my phone and we spent the day out. The next day, my friend called, upset about the damage the recent wedding had done to her husband's reputation. Apparently, on the wedding day, my mom and sister had desperately asked her husband to pull together basic arrangements and promised an additional $30,000 on top of the already paid $40,000, which just covered the venue. Despite his efforts to provide decent food and decor, the wedding was poorly received by the guests and the groom's family, leading to harsh criticism. In a scramble to deflect blame, my sister accused the wedding planner of ruining everything, a sentiment echoed by others. My friend's husband, though angry, stayed silent to protect my sister's future at my mother's request, bearing the blame himself. Yet, the promised additional payment was never made. Hearing about the ordeal made me feel a deep embarrassment for my family. I remained silent as my friend vented, not wishing to add to the drama. She reassured me that she didn't blame me, but simply needed to express her frustrations. Despite my own embarrassment, my husband pointed out that the family had brought this upon themselves by living beyond their means to impress others. He reassured me that distancing ourselves from their deceit was for the best, and I couldn't help but see the truth in his words. Now, on to the next troubling revelation. Recently, after a night of drinking, my husband confessed his love for my sister. Although he was intoxicated, his words shook me. We had spent a pleasant evening drinking wine and chatting after a family dinner, but his unexpected declaration left me stunned. The next morning, sober and silent, I pondered his words, unsure if they were just drunken ramblings or if they held a deeper truth. My sister, who had always been the modest type, had transformed herself over the past year, losing weight and dressing strikingly for the dinner. It was hard to ignore how stunning she looked, and perhaps in his inebriated state, my husband's true feelings had surfaced. Now, I'm left to decide how to address his confession. Should I confront him once he's sober, or dismiss it as nothing more than a drunken mistake? This dilemma is compounded by the old adage that a drunk mind speaks sober thoughts, leaving me to wonder about the future of our relationship and whether I could ever feel comfortable with him around my sister again. When people's inhibitions are lowered, especially in a state of inebriation, their emotions can often merge. This blending might lead some to mistake their lust for someone as actual love. This is something you might be experiencing, and it certainly warrants a serious, in-depth discussion with your partner. Without this conversation, moving forward in your relationship could prove very challenging. From personal experience, I can tell you that even if this incident is chalked up to mere lust, it might still cast a long shadow over your feelings and relationship. If there's a desire from both sides to salvage the relationship, I would strongly recommend both couples counselling and individual therapy to support a healthy progression together. I genuinely wish you the best and hope for a brighter future for you both. A similar thing happened to me once. My ex mistakenly professed his love for my twin sister while intending to address me. Despite his excuses, it became clear he had feelings for her and was close to me primarily to be near her. Eventually, my sister even started dating him, which was a hard pill to swallow, considering our competitive upbringing and complicated family dynamics. It's critical to have that heart-to-heart with your husband sooner rather than later. If he's behaving as if nothing happened, you might wonder if he even remembers his words. But remember, drunk words are sober thoughts. If you've noticed any previous behaviours that made you uneasy about his interactions with your sister, those need to be addressed. Ask him directly, face to face, about his feelings. His immediate reaction will likely reveal a lot about his true emotions. My husband always had a fondness for my family, especially my sister, who has been my closest ally and friend. We do a lot together as families, so his affection wasn't out of the ordinary. If he had simply said, "I love her," in a casual manner, it might have been dismissed as a drunken slip. But the way he expressed his feelings left little room for doubt. It was a clear, heartfelt declaration, not just idle, drunk chatter. Considering all this, confronting him directly and observing his reaction will be crucial. This confrontation will help clarify whether his declaration was a serious admission of deeper feelings or just a misguided comment in a moment of lowered inhibitions. That night, after my sister and her husband had left and we continued drinking, I confronted my husband about the love declaration he made. Surprisingly, he wasn't shocked or surprised by what he had said, only that he couldn't recall saying it. When I probed whether he had feelings for my sister before we started drinking, he admitted that he had always thought highly of her because she is kind and warm-hearted. He mentioned that her recent weight loss seemed to boost her confidence, making her appear even more beautiful, and confessed that his drunken self might have found her attractive. He tried to rationalize his thoughts by saying it's natural for people to find others attractive, and that his remarks were just a reflection of that momentary feeling. He reassured me that, despite her beauty and the affection he holds for her, I am his wife and the mother of his children, and his commitment is to me. However, he became defensive when I pushed with hypothetical scenarios about choosing between us if circumstances were different. He expressed frustration over what he called hypothetical games, arguing they lead to unnecessary conflicts over things that don't matter. After calming down, he reiterated his love for me, emphasizing that I shouldn't overthink his drunken ramblings. Despite his reassurances, I can't help but feel troubled. The thought of him possibly viewing me as a surrogate for his feelings towards my sister gnaws at me. It's daunting to imagine sharing intimate moments with him again, fearing my mind might wander to comparisons or doubt his sincerity. The proximity to my sister makes it even harder. We live just 5 minutes apart, and I often catch myself scrutinizing every interaction he has with her. He always speaks of her fondly, which makes me question whether he feels the same enthusiasm towards me. These thoughts have planted seeds of distrust and insecurity that are hard to shake off. After sharing my concerns and reading comments from others in similar situations, I've realized the importance of seeking therapy. It's clear that this issue is too complex to navigate alone. My husband has now acknowledged his feelings for my sister were more than fleeting and have been recurring over the years. He's promised that they've never been acted upon and assured me of his love and commitment to our life together. We've decided to start couples counselling to address these issues comprehensively. Moreover, he's agreed to give me space by not joining me anymore when I hang out with my sister. This arrangement might help me process everything without the added pressure of his presence. Although it's a relief to have these open discussions and plans for counselling, I know the journey to rebuild trust and ensure our relationship remains strong will be challenging. The thoughts of his past feelings might always linger, but I'm committed to working through this, hoping that with professional help and honest communication, we can find a way to move forward together.